Hello everyone, welcome back. Tom with Capo Fetish. Today on our channel, we are going to feature 10 artists or 10 albums, 10 late 60s albums that were released that were out of step with the counterculture. Basically 10 artists who didn't follow trends, who didn't conform, who completely did it their way, regardless of any kind of success or recognition. All right, so I'm going to start off there. This is not a ranking. You know, this is not any kind of thing like that. We're just going to feature 10 artists, 10 records that are completely out of step with the 1960s, basically rock albums. All right, so I'm going to start off here with first selection, number one selection here. An album that was released August 5th, 1969, a week and a half before Woodstock. And this album is the debut by the Stooges. Originally released on the Elektra label, signed by Jack Holzman. The Stooges album came out, didn't go anywhere, but it influenced thousands and thousands of alternative bands, pretty much influenced punk music straight on. When they say Iggy Pop is the godfather of punk, that is not an understatement. That is a statement. He is truly the godfather of punk. So this album, when it came out, was pretty much derided by all the press back in the day. Rolling Stone hated it. Pretty much everybody hated it, but it did gain a following in Detroit and other pockets of the U.S. So we're starting off side one with 1969, a track played by Ron Ashton, the guitarist, a riff that was recycled from the Byrds song Tribal Gathering from the Notorious Byrd Brothers album. Revved up. Just full-on distortion. Iggy Pop's vocals are just completely unhinged. Nothing really sounded like this back then. A lot of people just thought of it as stupid music, childish, but actually Iggy was quite an intellectual. So then we go into I Want to Be Your Dog, just an absolute punk rock classic. Third song is We Will Fall. I love We Will Fall. It's a true gothic classic. Inside two, we have just a bunch of 5-burner rock and roll tunes. No Fun, which was kind of taken as an influence from Walk the Line by Johnny Cash. We also have Real Cool Time, Anne, which is a real kind of slow, kind of Doors kind of feel kind of tune. And then we got Not Right, and it ends with Little Doll with a great little groove. An album completely out of step with late 60s counterculture. No one understood it. About 10 years later, everybody understood it, and it is a blueprint for pretty much all punk rock that followed. The Stooges from 1969. Debut album. On a completely different spectrum, we have an album by the Kinks, Village Green Preservation Society. Failed to chart in the US or the UK. There's themes of nostalgia, memory, preservation. It's pretty much an anti-modernism album. It's all about going back, looking at simpler times. There's styles of music hall, folk, calypso. There is no revolution or protest or free love on Village Green Preservation Society. It completely stands on its own. It really sounds like it came from no era. At the time, the Kinks were at a low commercial peak, should we say, or decline. And this is probably the lowest commercial decline they were at this point in 1968. No chart. They could hardly even find gigs to play at this point. They were still banned from the US. That ban would be lifted about a year later when the Arthur album came out. But the album is an absolute flawless masterpiece. A lot of people consider it their favorite Kinks album. It's definitely in my top 10. It's an absolute. There was a period in my life where I played this album nonstop. There's not one bad cut. All the songs are very simple. Some songs are even kind of romantic, like Sitting by the Riverside. You've got Big Sky, which kind of questions the big man upstairs. You've got Last of the Steam-Powered Trains, which is probably the closest they come to rocking on this album. You have great little vignettes like the title track Village Green, Animal Farm. Starstruck would have been a great single. I think it was released, but it didn't go anywhere. Do You Remember Walter is a great song. Picture Book, again. Johnny Thunder, Monica, All My Friends Were There. It's just all these short little 2-minute, 3-minute ditties, and it is completely out of step with 1968. Released the same year, or the same day actually, as the White Album and Electric Ladyland. It had no chance, but now it's regarded as one of the greatest Kinks albums and one of the greatest albums of all time. So the Kinks Village Green Preservation Society, released November 22nd, 1968. Then we're going to go to, of course, a very obvious choice. The first Velvet Underground album, Velvet Underground and Nico. This is a original stereo press that I acquired years ago. A partial banana has been peeled off right there. But this is completely anti-Summer of Love. This came out in March 67. It was actually mostly recorded a year prior in 66, but for whatever reason, contract obligations, whatever, it wasn't released till a year later. So this album here is completely unlike any album. Over the years, it's become almost too overrated, in my opinion. I mean, it is a fantastic album, but it's not like the #1 album of all time. But an absolute landmark, and every tune on here, I think, is just superb. You've got Sunday Morning, which kind of teases you into thinking it's kind of like a, like a pop album, and then it goes directly into I'm Waiting for the Man, which is about scoring drugs. Then you've got this goth stuff like Femme Fatale, sung by Nico. Venus and Furs, about sadomasochism. You got Run, 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 really dirty, grimy tune. All Tomorrow's Parties, another kind of gothic classic sung by Nico. Then, of course, you've got the classic Heroin. I mean, can you imagine 1967, a song about heroin, during the Summer of Love? No, I don't think so. People weren't buying it. There She Goes Again. You got the Black Angels Death Song. You've got I'll Be Your Mirror. Just a lot of great styles. You've got themes of drug addiction, prostitution, sadomasochism. It influenced punk, krautrock, post-rock, noise rock, shoegaze, goth, indie. One of the most influential albums of all time. And then while we're at it, their second album, White Light, White Heat, could this be anything more anti-late 60s here? You got Sister Ray, a 17-minute song about pure debauchery. You got the first song, White Light, White Heat, about amphetamines. You got Lady Godiva's Operation, one of the creepiest songs ever. Probably the most normal song on here is Here She Comes Now, which is a great little ballad that lasts about 2 minutes long. But yeah, noisy rock, which Sonic Youth and many other bands would take influence from. So completely out of step with the times, but by the 70s, they were acknowledged as an influence on punk and a lot of alternative music. So many bands influenced by the Velvet Underground. These albums are timeless. So White Light, White Heat, Velvet Underground, and Nico. Great albums, completely out of step with late 60s. Going next, on a completely different level, we have the Beach Boys' Friends. Such an absolute square-sounding album from 1968. I mean, I think this was their worst charting album so far on Capitol Records, and I think it was the next to last album released for Capitol Records. But I listened to it last night, and boy, does it have some really cool tunes. I mean, it's a sunshine pop classic. It really is. You got Meant for You. Friends is a great track. Wake the World. Be Here in the Morning. When a Man Needs a Woman. Cover. Passing By. I really love the tune Anna Lee the Healer, and I love Busy Doing Nothing. Those are just great songs. Ends with Transcendental Meditation. But all of it sounds very squeaky clean. The Beach Boys, just everything's like perfectly sounding, like the vocals, the instrumentation. Doesn't sound anything like, Haight-Ashbury 67, 68. Beach Boys are absolutely doing their own thing here, and you got to applaud them for it. It wasn't a commercial success, but they were definitely doing their own thing and completely out of step from Smiley Smile to about Sunflower. Sunflowers, they started becoming a little more contemporary, and of course, Surf's Up, Holland, amazing record. So I had to include this one. Friends from the Beach Boys from 1968. And then here's an album that just lampooned the entire counterculture. Had to include it. We're Only in It for the Money by the Mothers of Invention, Frank Zappa. The whole album takes potshots at hippies and Haight-Ashbury and drugs and the whole scene from 66 to 69. There's a track that ends on here. I almost look at it as the anti-Day in the Life. The chrome-plated megaphone of destiny. It's just this long drone, very dark, creepy ending of the album. I wonder if this is kind of like the anti-Day in the Life. It could be, but you got to love this cover. I mean, it's just fantastic, right? got Zappa here. You got Jimi Hendrix even in on the gig on the cover. All these faces blacked out. You got Lyndon B. Johnson. You even got Lee Harvey Oswald. Yeah, just the absolute anti-Sgt. Pepper right here. We're only in it for the money. And by the way, this is probably one of the best albums for editing. The editing on here is just phenomenal. I mean, there's just so much going on every like 2 minutes. Things change without any warning. There's spoken word going on, phone calls going on, great little ditties in between. There's a spoof on Hey Joe, played really fast. Yeah, this album is just fantastic. A classic. I'd say this one and Hot Rats are probably my two favorite Zappa records from late 60s, early 70s. So we're only in it for the money from 1968, another album just lampooning the counterculture. And then another great album that was probably just people's eyes were rolled in 68 when this came out, Byrds, Sweetheart of the Rodeo. I mean, considering that an album prior, the Notorious Byrds Brothers, was such a masterpiece of like psychedelia and a little bit of country and a little bit of pop. This album is just full on country. I mean, it came out, it was their worst charting album, but very influential. This is considered probably the first country rock album, but it's really, really full on country more than anything. They do a couple of great Dylan covers. You Ain't Going Nowhere. It ends with Nothing Was Delivered. Those are fantastic songs. You got Graham Parsons on here with Hickory Wind. Every song is fantastic. I'm not a huge country fan, but I think what saves this album for me is just the songs are fantastic. They're played with precision. And then, of course, those wonderful Byrds harmonies, but there's no jingle jangle on this album. It is just an absolute, like, it's almost like, you know, a Johnny Cash album. It's so like country, right? 1968. So it took a lot of balls to put this album out, but I love it. It's influenced a lot of bands, and it was really, just really out of nowhere from 1968, completely clashing with the ethos of hippie culture. So yeah, Sweetheart of the Rodeo, Sweetheart of the Rodeo, the Byrds from 1968. Then we'll go to 1969 for probably one of the first kind of sadcore albums. The genre that's considered sadcore. Nick Drake, 5 Leaves Left. Amazing artist, very troubled artist. He only released 3 albums in his lifetime. This one, Brighter Later, and Pink Moon, all 5-star albums. I don't think Nick Drake was even capable of putting out a bad tune. But yeah, you have a lot of just heavy melancholy. There's no 60s optimism here. Just a lot of beauty and melancholy and sadness. Incredible album here. Nick Drake's first album, 5 Leaves Left. Let's go back to 67 for a really unique album and debut from Leonard Cohen, the songs of Leonard Cohen. Here's a guy that wrote 2 poetry books before he was signed to Columbia. More of a poetry poet than a musician, but he learned quick and wrote every song on this album, and all these songs are absolutely magnificent. You've got, you know, of course, Suzanne, which was covered by Judy Collins. You've got One of Us. What is it? One of Us Cannot Be Wrong, which ends the album, I think, is one of his greatest songs with this just really amazing subtle melody. I think he's like the king of subtle melodies. You got So Long Marianne, Sisters of Mercy, just beautiful melodies, really like abstract lyrics about love and lust and passion. Really, really out of just, it's not really, it doesn't really fit into the psyche of 1967, but it did sell some. And Leonard Cohen went on to become an absolute just legend. But I think this is one of his first, or one of his greatest albums ever. The Songs of Leonard Cohen, 1967. And then we're going to end it with a great album from 69, the Flying Burrito Brothers, The Gilded Palace of Sin. Here are guys in nudie suits. We've got Chris Hillman and Graham Parsons. Just an incredible album. This is probably more influential than Sweetheart of the Rodeo. Every track is amazing, great harmonies, and there's a little more rock infused into this, so I think it's more of kind of like that cosmic country that Graham Parsons always wanted to put out. Great songs like Hot Burrito No. 2, Christine's Tune, Sin City, Do Right Woman. Incredible stuff. Didn't really fit into the times, but very influential on the Eagles, and even, you know, all the alternative country that came later, like Tupelo, Uncle Tupelo, and Wilco, etc., etc. So this is really not a big seller when it came out, but highly influential and really out of step with late 60s counterculture. So those are 10 examples. I appreciate you all watching. Thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And we have more content coming up soon. So we'll see you then. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.